welcome back to TV5 News at 9. It is time now for our favorite segment, Aging in Style, with American Retirement Advisors. Joining us now is President and Owner Joe Vitale. Thank you so much for calling in this morning, Joe.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you. So grab a pen, grab some paper. Joe knows it all. You need to jot this down. Today we are talking about 401ks. That's a hot topic. And in-service withdrawals. Now first, Joe, tell us, what is an in-service withdrawal?
In-service withdrawal is basically a distribution from your 401k prior to full retirement age, whether it's prior to 59 and a half or even after 59 and a half if you're still working. Last year under the CARES Act, you were able to make hardship withdrawals from your 401k if you needed money without a penalty, because normally there's a penalty for making distributions or withdrawals from your retirement plan prior to 59 and a half, or if it's a 401k prior to 55. So when you make those in service, meaning you're still working, but you're taking money out of your 401k. Now, it's still going to be taxable if you do that, but there are certain rules that you can utilize that allows you to take money out if it's for emergencies or if there's a necessity, especially under the CARES Act, but also for distributions either before or after 59 and a half, depending on the circumstance.
Okay, now that we know what in-service withdrawal is, you're working, taking money out. Joe, should we do these?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of times I'm going to say no, depending on the scenario. If you say, boy, I could really use some money to just really want to do this or really want to do that, it's too easy to tap into that, and then, of course, if you don't pay it back as a loan, you can take it as a loan against your 401k. But if you don't pay it back, then it's taxable. Now, even though there could be hardship provisions where you could take it out without a penalty, it's still taxable. So you have to look at that. The other thing is what about, should I take distributions? A lot of people say, well, should I roll over my 401k to an IRA? And we are doing that. We are seeing those. Those are good ideas to do a lot of times, especially if you're not getting a match from your employer, or if maybe the portfolio or the allocations or the choices really aren't that great, or the fees are kind of high, because we see the average cost is about 2.4% a year in a 401k. You just don't see the fees. They're kind of hidden in there. So there's not a lot of choice. There's a lot of choices a lot of times, but there's a lot of confusion, and you could benefit from actively managing. So we are doing a lot of in-service distributions. We're rolling it from a 401 to an IRA, giving you more choices, but the custodian has, or whomever your 401k provider is, sometimes they allow distributions prior to 59 and a half. Sometimes they do not.
Now, Joe, you talked about not getting a match from your employer. So what should someone do if their employer does not match their 401k contributions?
Well, it depends on your income. Every case is a little bit different. But some people we meet with, they're like, Joe, I'm not getting a match. I'd rather go invest in an actively managed portfolio where I know where it's going, where I have more control over it. I know what the fee structure is, and I'm more comfortable. And I agree with that. We do that a lot. Depends on your income, because sometimes you can put more into your 401k than an IRA. If you're younger than 50 years old, you can put $6,000 a year. If you're older than 50, it's $7,000 a year. There's a catch-up. But your 401k, you could put up to $24,500 a year, depending on your age. So you can put a lot more into it pre-tax. So that's one of it. Some people really need that forced savings, and we're really seeing a lot of our clients now coming up with $500,000, $1 million in their 401k, because out of sight, out of mind. You're just like clockwork, and people who say they're disciplined and are going to do it on their own, sometimes it's just a little hard. So I do like that forced savings where you're out of sight, out of mind, and it just starts to accumulate very, very nicely.
Well, that's great advice. Now, what about this, Joe? If you have a 401k from a former employer, what can you do with that 401k?
A lot of people come to us with former employee 401ks where it's just sitting there, it's in limbo. And you can, in all honesty, you can roll those over to your current employer 401k. But like I said, a lot of times the costs, you don't see the cost, but a little higher than an actively managed account. And that's a great opportunity to take that and make it portable, where now it's under your control more. And we do a lot of those where we'll take an old 401k program from an old employer, roll that into an actively managed IRA. But of course, we, as a SmartVestor Pro, we like to make sure that we give you, as a fiduciary, we like to make sure that we tell you all the ins and outs of everything so you make the right choice. It's not just about us rolling it over into an IRA. We have to look at what your horizons are, what your time plan is, what your retirement plan is. One of our clients, he retired at 57, and he can't touch an IRA to 59 and a half, but you can touch your 401k at 55 without a penalty. Even though it's still taxable, there's no 10% penalty. So we did leave some in this 401k to access it prior to 59 so that they can have some income to live on until they go from there. So there's strategies, and that's why, yes, we're a big fan. I'm gonna say yes. Big fan in rolling over an old employer 401k just to really put it to work and some better options.
Okay, now that brings me to my next question. When we retire, people want to just relax and enjoy themselves. So how can we make our money last throughout retirement, Joe?
What do we say all the time is proper allocation,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Making sure you're properly diversified, properly allocated. You have to have different buckets. You have to have a bucket for growth where you know that it's going to grow better, where maybe you're buying a little bit more risk, risky stocks or what have you. Not too much, but things that are poised for long-term growth. Then you have to have your bucket for immediate necessities, for maybe some guarantees, some safe bucket money, where that come heck or high water, you can pull income off of that bucket or out of that bucket without worrying. Then of course, without debt. Making sure you have a good emergency fund in the bank, making sure you have very little debt. So if you can go into retirement with very little debt, if no debt at all, as a Dave Ramsey SmartVestor, we like to make sure all the debt's paid off if we can. So making sure you have no debt, emergency bucket, growth bucket, because sometimes you're either too conservative and you're not going to make, inflation could eat that up, or you're not going to have enough for the long term, or you're too risky, and if we have a downturn, you can't pull money out of the market when the market goes down. You have to have that safe bucket to pull from. So being properly allocated, you'll definitely make sure that you'll be in good shape.
That's great. No debt and a little extra to play with. Okay, let's switch it up a little bit, Joe. Talk to us about investing long term. What about taxes and interest rates?
Yes, taxes and interest rates, one of the things that we keep saying is taxes are on sale. We've been talking about that for a long time. Taxes are on sale this year. We see that the spending right now in Washington is very, very big. There's a pandemic. They're trying to, get money into the marketplace, and they're printing money like crazy. Now, what happens with that is we're going to start to see inflation go up, but we're going to start to see taxes go up, because how are they going to pay for it? You can't keep printing money without, getting money to cover it, right?
Right.
So we see that taxes are definitely going to go up. We already see the proposed tax bill right now, and we see that taxes will be going up. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to strategize for that. Whether if we can maximize your tax bracket, and whether you're in a 12 or 15 or 22% tax bracket, let's be really smart about this. We are doing 401k or Roth conversions right now, where we're actually making sure we maximize your bracket, moving that money into Roth. So that way, long term, you're going to have some tax-free money. And that's part of the strategy. Some people never really plan for that. And then they get all this money, and they have to pull all this money out for taxes, for required minimum distributions. And they're way over taxes where they thought they would, and they don't need to be. It's just, we're all going to pay taxes, okay? That's okay.
Right.
Let's just make sure we don't pay just more than we need to.
Okay, sounds good. I told you, Joe knows. Okay, so Joe, thank you again for all this valuable information. Appreciate you calling in this morning.
Thanks, Colette. Take care. Good to see you again.
You as well, Joe. If you'd like any more information, just head on over to the Aging and Style page. That's at WNEM.com.